We're back, baby. Season 3. I don't know if we have seasons, but we'll go with it. Of the Conversion Tracking Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Brad Redding, here with Jon, co-host. Today, we are talking about 3 things to know about event match quality scores from Meta. I know we both get this topic and question literally every day, all day. So let's just get right into it. Match quality scores, 3 things to know. So what are EMQ scores? Again, aka event match quality scores. Inside Business Manager, when you go to your data source, you will see your pixel. And on the screen, our screen that you're looking at here, you will typically see your list of events. You'll have standard events like page view, view content, purchase. And if you have set up custom events, so it could be a new purchase, a returning customer purchase, maybe you have custom events for category views or gender-based activity, you'll see those show up here. But in general, you'll see your standard events, where they're coming from. So is it client side, aka browser side, or server side? And then the event match quality score associated with this. Now, if you've been in this game for long enough, it could be a week to week basis where one day it's a score, the next week it's good or great or poor. When you click into those scores, it'll give you a breakdown, which is the image on the left on the screen. And this is where you'll have a little bit more information around the actual score for that particular event. So in this case, we're looking at a purchase event. This is from an Elevar customer where we have the score of 9.3 out of 10. You'll also see the additional attributed conversions from this event due to the CAPI integration. And then this is where a lot of the nuance and questions and back and forth happens, especially in our technical support with our customers, is the parameter by parameter breakdown. So email, first name, IP address, phone number, click ID, aka FBC, everything in between. So we're going to peel back the knowledge and where these come from and why they matter here in a minute. But that's event match quality scores in a nutshell. So Jon, let's start with that. How are EMQ scores calculated?
Okay, well, I recently learned a little bit when we did some research for this podcast. So let's jump into the learnings. First of all, they're only calculated on CAPI data. So you know how everyone's got the redundant client side and server side tracking. Well, the client side events, whatever data you're sending on those client side events, those don't get calculated into EMQ. So it's server side only, which is interesting. It's CAPI only. It's only over the last 48 hours. And there's a little bit of a nuance here. I don't know if you want to quickly talk about.
Yeah, do it.
So the nuance is if you're turning on a system like Elevar that does a whole bunch of stuff in the background to get more information into these events, the 48-hour time period is probably not the time period you should be looking at to understand if it's doing better or not. You need more time because our systems and competitor systems need time to warm up. So 48 hours is the timeline they do their grading on, but it could take longer to get all the information that we have into the system. So just a little side note. Yep. Don't look after 48 hours. Give it a little more time. Meta does not score data quality. I think that's going to be pervasive throughout these next couple minutes. They're scoring the number of the number of parameters you're sending with each event. So Brad just showed you a list of a whole bunch of parameters like FPC and phone number and email and all that good stuff. They're scoring based on the number of those parameters you're sending in. They aren't scoring on how accurate those parameters are. That's a really important nuance. And then lastly, maybe we can go back to that last slide because I think in the last slide it shows the FBC isn't full. It's a little bit hard to see, but it's really important to note that the number of events with an FB click ID is very closely related to the amount of traffic that's coming to your site with an FB click ID, right? So if you have a site where there's no ads running, you're going to have a very low FBC percent, and it's going to affect your EMQ score. So it's within your control, but kind of, sort of not really, because if you're not running a lot of Facebook ads, you're going to be limited by what you're scored for EMQ.
Yeah. Cool. So that's a little background on how EMQ scores are calculated. Now let's move on to number 2. What's the purpose of EMQ scores? So I have a few slides here to go through this. I'll touch on this first one. This image is from, I think Maurice created this from Disruptive Digital and their blog. You can look at this on the Facebook site docs as well. But basically, there's a bid formula where your total value, which is how you are going to rank against other advertisers that you're trying to essentially capture visibility in Meta serving your ad. It's a 3-part calculation. It's your bid times your estimated action rates plus your perceived user value. So for tracking and EMQ scores, we're really focused on estimated action rates. So if we keep this very narrow to EMQ, if we're just sending 100% of events to Facebook, but we have very limited user data, so translated low EMQ scores, Meta is not going to be able to connect as many of your ad clicks and impressions to user activity on the site. So in this case, this would actually cause your estimated action rate. So instead of being, I don't know, an 8, it might be a 2. So in this formula, your total value number will actually go down. So that would mean if you wanted to actually have your ad shown to a particular user, you'd have to potentially bid higher to move that needle. So that's a very, very, I'd say the quickest overview I can give on the improved auction performance, but really the estimated action rates, that's what we're focused on here, which is a combination of events plus user data or matching quality data. Anything to add to this one, John?
Just think about this as if you owned Meta and you wanted to understand the behavior of everybody. You would want to know, so you're always receiving events from a whole bunch of sites. You want to know who those people are on the sites that are generating the events so you can profile them, understand what they're interested in. That's what Meta's trying to do. They're trying to match random behavior that's coming in to somebody they know and aggregate and profile and remarket and all that. So that's what's going on here under the hood.
Yep. The next one, what's under this umbrella of number 2, what's the purpose of EMQ scores? Really simply, it's to improve ads manager reporting, aka attribution. So this is a lot of this does have overlap with sending the maximum amount of events or conversions to Meta. But again, let's use Google Analytics. If you just send 100% of conversions but no attribution data to Google, what would happen? You'd have 100% of conversions attributed to direct none because Google doesn't know where they came from. So that's where EMQ scores has that direct or indirect correlation to helping improve your reporting inside of Ads Manager. I'm going to stay away from any third-party attribution tools. So this is really focused on Ads Manager reporting. Anything to add to this one, John?
No, nothing.
The next one, lower funnel events plus, I'll put this in quotes, mediocre EMQ scores. Let's say scores between 4 and 6. John, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, the thing here is, does it matter? Like if I'm not optimizing for page views, and most people aren't, or view items, why do I care if the EMQ score goes from like a 4 to an 8 when you use a tool like Elevar? What's the point? And I think that's a totally fair question, but it goes back to what we were just talking about. If you are Meta and you're trying to profile and understand what people are doing, then if we send you an email address on a page view and there's no click ID, so this person's kind of unknown to you, but we're able to provide you an email address, then the profiling becomes easier because you can see somebody's on a particular site and maybe they're interested in a particular product. And then obviously using all the crazy machine learning that Meta does, obviously you're going to be able to market to that person better. So it really does matter. It matters all the way to the upper funnel.
Yeah. Maybe touch on the reality that most advertisers, we won't have high EMQ scores because there's usually no reference to PII, and maybe they're not as useful. So if you had a page view that had a score went from 4 to 8, is that really going to be like, how beneficial do you think that'll be? I know this is conjecture a little bit. This isn't necessarily the source of truth, but what are your thoughts on there based on a lot of combos that you have with the Meta team directly?
Yeah, like speaking with some of their engineers, I'm always trying to get it would be nice if we could quantify the answer to this question. I don't think you can,
Yeah.
but they go through the exact same logic that I just did, and I'm not sure I can add anything more
Okay.
beyond. It's just easier for them to profile if they know who you are. And remember, if somebody comes to a site and signs up for a Klaviyo banner or some email banner, most of the time your Meta connector is going to have it's not going to use that email address. They're two totally disconnected systems.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start connecting things like Elevar does, we do get to use an email on the page view. In prepping for this podcast, I asked a friend at Meta this exact question. He said, well, you never really have an email address for a page view anyways. It would be helpful if you did. But actually, Elevar does enable that. So, yeah.
Yep. And for those that are listening, not actually viewing the slides directly, I wanted to point out the note that if you are running campaigns against retargeting audiences, your upper funnel events with, again, mediocre EMQ scores, those are valuable. And then with Advantage Plus shopping, where you now can define engaged audiences, that is another layer where this can help as well. And a lot of this information, we work very closely with Meta, so we're trying to give you the latest and greatest insight here. Now let's jump into the targeting aspect of what's the purpose of EMQ scores. And this one, I'll take the first part and let you touch on the second part. But very simply, Meta has a very advanced machine, and we need to train Meta or tell Meta how to differentiate between high and low value users. So therefore, they are not putting your ads in front of low value users to you. And this is, again, through a combination of 100% of tracked events plus high and accurate. To go back to John's point, we don't want to just stuff with dummy data and a phone number like a 111-11 because that does no one any good, but high and accurate EMQ scores. So that's my take on the targeting aspect of EMQ. John, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. It's like if you look in every events manager for any e-com store, it's the exact same events. So they know that what the funnel approximately looks like. And if they see people coming to your site and abandoning right away, they obviously know that that person's probably not the best to market to. But if they see somebody who checks out a product and adds it to their cart and then removes something from their cart and then begins to check it, clearly that person is more interested. So they take that into account, despite what like lots of people think. Those guys at Meta are hyper focused on performance. So if you own the channel, what would you be doing if you were hyper focused on performance? You'd be doing a little bit of sort of CRO type stuff, and that's what they're doing too.
Yeah, they want you to do well, so you don't pull budget from Meta and move it somewhere else. All right, number 3. Does higher event match quality scores equal better ad performance? John, drum roll.
Yes and no. Yes and no. If the data that you're sending is guaranteed to be 100% accurate, then yes, the answer is yes. And the people at Meta will agree with this. But there's a caveat here, because if you're sending data that maybe it could be called probabilistic, information that you don't know is for sure true, that can juke the EMQ scores. It can make the EMQ scores look awesome, like maybe get to a 10. But if the data is incorrect, the performance actually can drop. So they could be inversely correlated, because if you're confusing the system and sending Brad's email on every page view for every single person, it's not going to help with selling to your broad market. That's not going to do much, but potentially it could improve the EMQ scores. So it's too bad that EMQ wasn't a measure of match, like a true measure of match. It would be nice if it said 80% of the events that you sent were matched to a user, but that isn't what it is. That is not what it is. It's a rating on the number of parameters that you're sending. So it's a proxy for match, but it's not a match score. So you have to be really careful here, because I think there are companies that are sending, like you said, Brad, 111-111-111 for phone number, and then it makes the phone number in the ratings go to 100%, but it's not accurate. You're totally missing the point. So If the data is accurate, it's correlated with ad performance. If your data is not accurate and you're guessing emails and stuff like that, all bets are off. It could be bad for you.
Yeah. So the TLDR here is accurate EMQ data leads to matched events, which will help attribute conversions to ads and deliver ads to people who are more likely to convert, which can result in better ad performance and lower cost per action. To go back to the bid auction. So there you have it. That is 3 things about event match quality scores. If you like this, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.